Morning. Beautiful day outside. Hope you brought your warm, or your cooler closed. It's going to be kind of warm for the next couple of days. We'll get started right away. Otherwise, we got an email from Sarah and Matthew yesterday, and Sherry got one little type of printed that she can expand it for you that us blind folks can read them. And mine actually took, she sent some pictures of all the JPEG pictures of all the message there. And Sherry confiscated my copy, so. It's around her. Oh, shoot. Of what they're eating, where they're at. Some interesting weather patterns they have over there. And I'll read the message here. Hello from Estonia. Had a good trip over to Europe on Monday. Our connections in Iceland and Finland were very tight, but thankfully we made them right on time. The boat ride from Finland to Estonia was very relaxing. See if you can take a picture of the ferry boat that's on the circulating. We're excited to see our missionary friends again. Rob and Angela Roby, they've been in Estonia 8 years and have made a lot of progress in learning the language and cultures since the last time we were here. Isaac has enjoyed playing with their 4 children. Yep, Isaac's not lonely. Thursday was Isaac's 9th birthday. We had Estonian kringle for dessert instead of cake. It took a few days to get used to the time change. We're 8 hours ahead of them, ahead of Central Time. It doesn't help that there's only about 2 hours of darkness at night. Think about those that like to sleep in. The attached picture was, she said a landscape picture there. It was taken at 11 p.m. You'll see why. It doesn't get dark until midnight, and then fully light with birds singing around 3 a.m. Think about that for a minute, farmers. If you like to get up early. Sunday, Matthew will be preaching in the church here with Rob translating into Estonian. Then Monday starts our Ocean Commotion Vacation Bible School, so we've been busy each day getting everything ready for that. We play the tour, bring the children to our Vacation Bible School, and then some will make decisions to follow Christ. We appreciate your prayers, loving Christ. Sarah and Isaac. Let's see here. Pretty much standard announcements in the back there. We've got Kerry Goosen here. Goosen? Goosen. That was close. From RHMA, we'll do a presentation this morning for us there. And really difficult. The electronic stuff didn't get to work until 5 minutes ago, literally. He was here a half hour early and thought, we're done. I got here about 20 minutes ago and it still wasn't going. Like 5 minutes ago, it's up and running. Somewhat. Also, First Baptist in Waukon is currently accepting gently used items for their missions trip. Regard sale there. We do that. And our daily bread back there on the back table there. And let's see. Chuck Lamper will be here next week here. I believe he deals with Gideons. A member of Gideons or one of the heads of the Gideons or something like that. Not paying any attention or something. Leave it up to his wife to explain it. Looking back, special days. June 12th, Dexter's birthday. Saturday, June 17th, Roger's 53rd anniversary. You guys still have those? Can I be so bold and ask how old?
45.
You're getting there. You got it figured out yet? Or still figuring it? You get a chance to, you can't get a chance to, you get all the Dexter there. Happy birthday. He appreciates all that. He may not attend the church here, but he knows everyone. Our June memory verse inside the bottom of the front cover there. From Romans 1:16. And if you read it aloud with me. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, for it is the power of God and salvation to everyone that believeth, to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. Romans 1:16. Let's see here. It's been a while since I've done this, so I guess now, do we have any prayer requests or praises this morning?
We got Nelda's mom moved in up at Evergreen Court, or whatever they call it, up by, across from Good Sam, the apartments there.
Oh, is that the, looks like a row of apartments?
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. Got her finally moved in yesterday.
You never know how much stuff you got until you got it moved, right?
Would you like to have some of my boxes?
No, thank you. You'd be surprised what I left behind when we moved up here.
It only took the truck, the trailer, and the car trailer to get it on there.
All in one little. I remember when we moved Margaret, we trimmed her down quite a bit when we moved her. Still ended up with a bunch. But that's life, I guess. Any other praises or third question at all?
Just
Liz?
for Psalm.
Psalm and Candy.
Yeah, they're still dealing with their cancer problems. They're both going through some kind of radiation treatment now, from what I understand. I don't know what the status is. I haven't gotten an update yet. And Psalm, I guess, is kind of having a rough time of it. She's pretty down in spirits and that. The wife keeps testing her and trying to be positive with her and that. Remember them both in your prayers. And we've got a little outing coming up around the 7th or so of July. Hopefully Candy will be up for it. So far she is. She's going to participate in it. It's a family thing that we've got going on. Just pray for them. And for both of them, salvation. I don't know which all is with God and that. And you think I would be pretty close. And, you know. Pray for their salvation and for their health. How Roger? Not Roger. You're sitting there. Can't think of your name. Walter. Hello. How's Walter doing?
He's actually had a better week. He's probably had the best week he's ever had.
Good deal. Little.
So just keep
Give us-
praying. Yeah.
Keep praying. Keep praying. Remember our country in prayers. It's something near and dear to my heart as I worked for this government for a little over 20 years. And it's gone downhill since then. It started going downhill before that. It got worse in the last 20 years or so. Remember our leaders. Hopefully they'll have spine, backbone. Quit worrying so much about being politically correct and do what is supposed to be done instead of what they think everybody wants and nobody gets asked. And have a sneaky deal with this. It's only going to get worse. It's got people band together and start praying. We can do an awful lot. There's no such thing as too much prayer. We have any other requests?
I have a prayer for Sean and the company coming back certainly on the 16th for safe travels and hopefully a good visit and then we'll get back home soon.
I think we've got a new granddaughter too. So, sorry, John, the only one with a first granddaughter.
And then this company, and Jim is gonna come and do some.
Yeah, I remember Kristen and her family, they're coming with their youngest daughter, she'll be coming back for this family thing we got going on around the 7th or so. Pray for their safe trip and that. And they'll be visiting with their granddaughter. Again, we haven't seen ours yet. Only the pictures and Facebook and what have you. And I don't deal with Facebook, so I've got a picture of her at home and that's it. If there's no other prayer requests or praises this morning, we go to the Lord in prayer. And in our quiet time there, just anything that you can think of to bring up. Remember the pastor and his family there, that they had a successful missions trip through their vacation Bible school and that, and God will keep his hand on them, keep them protected, and bring them back to us. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for your many blessings and for your love for us. Thank you, Lord, for our church, our pastor and his family, and the missionaries that we support. We ask your blessing and your hand upon them, protect them, guide them, and meet their needs, and make them a blessing to those that they come in contact with and the light in the countries where they serve. Lord, we ask for those that are sick and ailing among us. Walter, Lord, continue to bless him and be with him, strengthen him, Lord, and uplift him, and give him encouragement. Lord, and maybe one of these days he'll be able to be back here in church with us, to visit with us. Lord, for Soul and Candy, yes, that you touch their bodies and strengthen them also. Uplift them and encourage them. And somehow, Lord, draw them closer to you. Get them both to realize, Lord, that without you, we can't do anything. Heavenly Father, we pray for this country of ours and our leaders. We ask, Lord, that you work in their hearts, in their minds, giving them the courage and the will to do what is right for the country, not for our own self-serving purposes. We thank you, Lord, for our country and the freedom we do have, and the freedom we have to worship thee in spirit and in truth. And we know there are forces out there that are working to bring that to an end. We have so many things to be thankful for, Lord, our church, our missionaries, our pastor and his family, and the successes that you grant us as we go along. Lord, we ask that you watch over the remainder of this service and bless the speaker and his family, Lord, as he brings forth a message about the RHMA, and may it touch our hearts and be a blessing to us, and bless them wherever they go so they can be a light and a blessing to those that they meet and come in contact with. We'll give thee all the praise and the honor for it in your precious and holy name. Exalt the Lord. I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations. I will sing of you among the peoples. For great is your love, reaching to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. Psalms 57, 9 to 11. And our first agenda, well over 331. Okay, never mind, 31. Makes sense. If you're able, please stand with me. And if you know this, start it off, because I'm not familiar with it, please. For thou It's Do we ever? Motion to come forward with an auction, please. Ducks always enough for 8:15. Page 69 is available. One out of three, not bad. It's the first and the last verse in it, please. Terry Dawson, member of RHMA. I'm here today to give us a little synopsis of what RHMA is all about. We've only heard about it for the last 3 or 4 years now from the past, how great they are in that. And you get to prove it. Terry, you're on.
Good morning. Well, I first want to say thank you so much for allowing Nettie, my wife, and I to be here this morning. When I talked with Matthew, it's already months ago, we had been talking about a time when we could come up and maybe explain a little bit in detail about RHMA, the mission that they're involved with. And I know they've been here now, how many years is it? Is it 4 or 3.5, 4 years?
3.5.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, so it's, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come and explain a little bit more in detail of what the mission is all about and why we do what we do. Like I said, Nettie and I work at RHMA, Rural Home Missionary Association, and it's basically all about planting and strengthening churches across the United States. Nettie and I are basically the pastoral couple to all of our pastoral couples out there across the United States. And I'll get into some slides here after a little bit and we'll talk more about that. I'm the Director of Mission Ministries, which involves, as I just said, our pastoral couple across the United States to all of our pastoral couples, but that involves recruiting at Bible colleges, it involves application process. There's a lot more to it than what a guy ever would imagine. Nettie is a financial secretary administrative assistant at the home office also. And including our part-time help now at the RHMA office, there's actually 11 of us that works there with this mission organization when we're all there. But many times we're out on the road. 2 Corinthians 11, in verses 22 through 27, Paul in his ministry, he talks about and he explains a lot of things here. But then he gets to verse 28, and this is what he says. He says, besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. I've read that verse many a time, but it never really became alive till a while back. And that really is what Nettie and I would echo, Paul's words, our concern for all the churches with RHMA across the United States. Well, Paul goes on in verse 30 to say, if I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. You see, this is what made Paul strong. This is what made him who he was, because he empowered, or he embraced the power of Christ. Well, it goes on in chapter 12, verse 9. These are Jesus' words. He says, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And then Paul says this, therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest upon me. It is because of him, it is because of God, that we do at RHMA what we do, and that we're able to do what we're able to do. And it is only because of him. With these pictures, slides, whatever you want to call them, and like was said, actually Nettie and I got here about an hour early because I wanted to make sure that this all worked. I'm from a farming background. Maybe I should have explained a little bit. Nettie and I grew up in southwest Oklahoma, and we farmed the first 20 years we were married. There's a lot to that story. We went through the early 80s when FDIC closed all 3 banks down in our community. Interest rates soared to 18%. Some of you know all of that. We chose then to sell out completely in our farming operation, and we started over. We leased equipment and leased land, and we did that for the next number of years, but something was, and it was working, but something was telling me that I just wasn't in the right place. Well, long story short, I went back to seminary later in life. We pastored a church up in South Dakota, one out in western Kansas, prior to joining up with RHMA now over 5 years ago. I say all that to say in my growing up days, that was before all this stuff. And so it's not user friendly for me. I have to do it, we use it, and we do what we can. But anyway, we got here an hour early this morning because I know about this stuff. So we got her set up. Matthew and Sarah had good instructions. And literally, right before we started here, we at least got the picture up there. But you'll see that we just could not get it tuned in. I still don't understand what's going on there. The pictures are there, so we'll try to explain. And as I go through this overview of RHMA, please stop me with questions. I would really like this to be interactive. If there's anything you don't understand or I'm not making sense, please stop me and let's talk about it. I would really appreciate it if you do that. RHMA this year celebrates 75 years. The first picture up there on the left, up on top, is the first building that RHMA had their headquarters, their office in. C.J. Rediger, which really won't mean a lot or anything to you guys, but was pastoring a church out in western Illinois. And he's seen there were backyard Bible clubs, there were Bible schools going on, but he's seen that there were not churches in each community following up with these children. And so he had a vision, a dream that God laid on his heart that there should not be a community anywhere in the United States, a small rural community without a church. So that was his vision in starting RHMA 75 years ago. Well, the first building, again, as I say, was the first office, and that's in Morton, Illinois. How many of you know where Morton is at? Okay, that's where Nettie and I are from. That's where we drove up from. And the reason the office headquarters started there, because Webster, Illinois is about 2.5 hours west of there, where he was at. But as I understand, a lady donated this spot for RHMA to start as headquarters. So that's why it started here in Morton, Illinois. The second building on the right, it was an old house there in Morton, and that was about 1960. They remodeled it into some office space, and so that's where it moved next. And just over 10 years ago, RHMA was blessed by those that seen the need and donated for this and built this office setup, and that's where we're at now. And that's where there's 11 of us now with part-time help. As I said, RHMA celebrates 75 years this year. This last April, and some of you might recognize Erwin Lutzer or know who he is, former pastor of Moody Church in Chicago. But we held a big banquet. This was something that had been planned for, I guess, a year and a half or so, knowing 75th was coming up. Our executive director there, Ron Clausen, basically planned all this with a lot of help. But anyway, he was our keynote speaker that night, and there were about 1,000 people that attended that banquet just back here in April. This is our RHMA family. This was taken about 2 years ago with a drone. This was after one of our conferences, and as you can tell, it's not very clear. But these couples, and Matthew and Sarah, are right there in the center, a little bit left. And you can hardly see them there, but 2 years ago, somebody offered to take this after one of our conferences with a drone. But since then, this family has changed. It's grown. We have more missionary families on board with RHMA across the United States. Now this, I wish it would show it clearer, because the dots and some of the arrows and all indicate where we are at right now with RHMA, with Rural Home Missionary Association, as far as our pastoral couples scattered across the United States. And it has actually changed. And it continually changes because we add new families on, there might be somebody retired, that kind of thing. So we're scattered from the bottom of Arizona, going up to Idaho, Utah, going across. You can see Nebraska it's hard to see, but there's more dots than what's showing up. But we're pretty heavy there. In South Dakota, going across Illinois, over to Connecticut, New York, up to Maine, and then the bottom of Texas, and then scattered all the way in between. Now, with this picture, you might say 75 years, and that's not many churches out there. But we don't have exact records, but we're just guesstimating, and it's hard to do that because the records are not there. But From the home office, they're telling me, some that have been there now for close to 30 years, are saying that we have possibly helped close to 250 or more, 275 churches similar to what you are right here over these past 75 years. And you might ask, what does that mean by helping them? Well, an example that I'll give is a little church in Chadwick, Illinois. This little church, this is already going on now, probably 18 years ago, but they called our HMA for help. They were down to about 6 people. They're meeting in a little movie theater on the corner in that little town. There was no longer a gas station, no longer a restaurant, like a lot of little small towns across the U.S., and just literally dying. Well, this church is still there. There's still people in the community. There's still farmers around the community. So they called our HMA, and this is how we get involved a lot of times with churches that need help. They called and said, "Can you help us?" So at that point, we, as I said before, part of our job is recruiting at Bible colleges. We're here at Emmaus Bible College, Dubuque, Iowa. We're at Moody Bible Institute, Chicago. We're, maybe help me out here, Dallas Theological Seminary, Lancaster Bible College in Pennsylvania, LaGrange, Wyoming, Frontier School of the Bible, Montana Bible College. So we're scattered across the United States looking for pastors graduating from Bible colleges, seminaries that would be interested in rural missions like this. Well, we had a couple. I wasn't there then, but RHMA had a couple at that time. Chadwick, Illinois, calling for help. We helped facilitate that couple to Chadwick. 12 years later, that little church grew to about 68 people, 68 to 70 people. At that point, the church decided, hey, we don't need somebody that's raising support at this time. We need to step up and pay the salary of our pastoral couple. So, if you would say it that way, we graduated them off of our HMA, and the little church is continuing on now. Actually, Nettie and I have had the opportunity to go up there. It's 2.5 to 3 hours from Morton, but to bring the morning messages many a time. That's the kind of examples we like to give, and that really is what our HMA is about. Any questions so far? I don't want to just do all the talking. Yes?
I don't have a question, but I think that Reba Newland was involved in Emmaus at Dubuque, and I don't know in what capacity, and now she's passed along.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't recall that.
She was a member of our church.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She and her husband.
Great, yeah. Yeah, we've been there now, I think, 3 times, I believe, on campus, recruiting. It's a good place. I mean, they're teaching good stuff. And again, we don't go to places where they wouldn't align doctrinally with us also. Yeah, thank you. Any other questions so far? Any other comments? Okay, another thing that we do at our HMA, and again, I wish this was clearer. The top row showed our plenary speakers, but we just got through hosting this conference, April 24 through 26, and Matthew and Sarah were also there at our conference. We have we started on Saturday going through Thursday. The bottom pictures, the 2 rows, would have been our workshop speakers. This conference that we put on is, we focus on rural, small town America. So our speakers, our workshops all lend to that. There's many conferences across the United States you could go to. As pastoring, as Nettie and I were in South Dakota, Western Kansas, we're from the Mennonite Brethren background, and so there were some big conferences, but generally speaking, they were geared to larger cities, that kind of thing. That's not what we do. We gear to the small town, rural areas to try to help our pastoral couples be encouraged with what they're doing, because it is very important. At this particular conference, we had, this is actually one of the plenary sessions, but we had 500 attend. This is one of the largest that we've ever had as far as attendance, and then we did have 1,000 at that banquet celebrating our 75th anniversary. Now, I say these numbers, and I don't want you to think that well, yeah, we're all about numbers and we're big and all that stuff. We are not. This conference at 500 Those 500 that came, they represented 31 states from the United States and actually one from Alaska. And these pastors that come are like Matthew and Sarah. They come from very small town, rural settings. So it's 500 coming from across the United States. We're thrilled about that because that shows that these pastoral couples need encouragement. They need to be encouraged from those that can speak to their settings, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Grace Church in Morton, that's actually the largest place that we know of that we can host this type of a conference. And so they're so gracious to allow us to use this whole facility for the full week and not a penny charged. They don't charge us anything for that. So you can imagine the electricity, the air conditioner, the heating, all that, whatever it might take. They have been gracious to do this now for I think it's about 30 years that this has been going on. Now this is a new facility since we started. They were in another facility that actually hosted it then, but the RHMA conferences were not nearly as large as they are today. We continue are growing. I look down at my notes because I don't want to miss something. This is another picture just showing the meals. Now this does not do it justice because the room goes way farther over here. Those other doors open and there's a gymnasium on the other side. So when we feed these people, I mean there's 500 of us that have to be fed. And here's what I wanted to really stress, that in Morton's area in Illinois, there are 40-some area churches that actually help us put this on. So this is, and I say it that way because RHMA does not have a lot of money to work out of. RHMA is truly a mission organization. We rely on donors. Even for Nettie and myself to work at RHMA, and this was a very big hurdle for us to come on board with RHMA because we had to go out and raise 100% support just to work there. RHMA cannot afford to pay us if we don't go raise the money and put it in their fund, which people can get a tax break, that kind of thing, in order for us to survive. Even for Matthew and Sarah, it's the same way. Their funds, and I realize that you guys help them with some of their salary. Matthew works a job, sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, but then he goes out and raises support also. So, but we're the same way. But I wanted to let you know that these kind of things happening with these 500 people coming, if it wouldn't be for these 40 other small churches in this area, there's no way this kind of stuff could be put on. Because these churches actually bring in the meals. They partner up. There might be 3 churches together that say, okay, we're going to bring fried chicken. And so one church does that. One church puts all the salads together. One church puts all the vegetables, whatever. When we have our feedback from our conferences, one of the things they say is that we feed them too much. And we actually have slimmed back on that. We don't put quite as much out because, I mean, it is a time of fellowship, though. It's really good. It's good home-cooked food. Another part of the conference is the workshops. As I showed you, the bottom 2 rows of speakers. And I think this last year there were 8 different workshops throughout the week. And each one of them are a different subject. Actually, we had one on pastors in small towns dealing with depression. We have workshops that deal with drug abuse, alcohol abuse in rural areas. And I don't have all those statistics with me, but it is actually proven or shown now that in your rural areas that drug abuse, that type of thing, is even higher than it is in larger cities. The percentage of people using it and getting in trouble with that kind of thing. So just because it's small town rural America does not mean that there's not problems. They are. They're really, really rampant out there. Yes?
One of the things is that each place that RHMA is located, the culture is all different. It isn't like, I don't know if you want to explain a little bit.
Yeah, glad you said that. As I said, from Arizona to Utah, Idaho, all across the United States, every rural I used to look at rural and say, well, that was rural. I'm from farming background, used to run cattle, used to raise wheat and all of that. That's not the case. Every rural small town is very, very different. Take Colchester, Connecticut, or Neversink, New York, where we're at, or the top of Maine, or the bottom of Arizona, Colorado City, Arizona. If you're familiar with Warren Jeffs, anybody heard that name over the last number of years? He is still in prison in Texas. He is from this is a polygamous town in Colorado City, Arizona, and we have a pastoral couple. We actually have 2 couples there now planting a church. And he's still running that town, somewhat, from prison. So every rural area is very, very different. So you can tell with RHMA, with us working with all these spots across the United States, it takes a lot of different thinking as we go to different places, because it is very different. But there's such a need out there. Again, the workshops that we do, and I see my time is getting away on me here real quick. We don't want to
Keep going.
We don't want to do that. Well, you tell me if I just need to shut her down here. Actually, we host a conference every other year in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and that's what this brochure shows. Last year we had about 200 at that conference. So we're trying to scatter out a little bit more because not everybody can come to Morton. Maybe they can come like there, and so that one is actually growing. We hold one-day seminars. This one last year was held at Cedarville University, and so we'll go. And not all of us from the home office go. Nettie and I are usually not involved in these when we go away because our work takes us out visiting missionaries and that kind of thing, but we have some from the home office that will do this one-day seminar there at Cedarville. And then there are some other one-day seminars that happen across the country too. We also have what's called Town and Country Training. Matthew and Sarah came to this last year, some of you might remember. This is TAC, Town and Country Training, and it's actually 10 years old now. This last week, actually, there was a class, and this next week there's another class. These are master level classes, and they are accredited through seminaries that we have connected with. So if someone comes, someone's maybe at Frontier School of the Bible, a Bible college, and they're thinking on going on and doing a seminary, they can come and take these classes and actually be accredited already for the seminary that they would go to. Even if it's years down the road, they can what you call bank their credits, and then this could be used going into seminary. What this class does, you can only imagine most pastoral couples now coming out of seminary, out of Bible colleges. How do I say it? I call it a total different world of generation than what I grew up in. So even for most of them to even have any concept of rural, they don't. A lot of these, their parents maybe moved 5 or 6 times, maybe because of military, maybe because of jobs. So they never settled into a rural area. They really don't know what it's about anywhere across the United States. So that's what this class tries to help them prepare for. We have 4 different classes. Every other year they're offered. Actually, one is offered every year. This last week, that's the one we had, and then the others are offered every other year. So that's what's happening right now back at RHMA. This is just one of the classroom settings. This is actually at our home office, and we'll have, I don't know how many were actually in this class, but I think this last week there were 18, am I thinking right? Had attended that class. And it's a module, so it's a semester class crammed into 1 week. And then they have to go home and do their papers and finish reading all the materials. I threw this in because we have, like I said, RHMA does not have a pot of money to work out of. Everything is donated. Everything is given to do what we do. Even, I should back up a little bit, at the conference where we bring Matthew and Sarah to the conference, all of that money has to be raised. So we raise all of that from the home office across the United States just to bring our missionary family in from across the United States. And don't quote me on this, but I believe it's around, I think it's around $15,000 to $18,000 just to do that part of it. And so we have to go out and raise that because we don't expect our missionary families, our pastoral couples, because they're out here trying to scrape the bottom just to survive the way it is. So that's one of our ways of trying to help them. Volunteers. Another thing we do for our pastoral couples is we mail out their newsletters 4 times a year. They send it to us, and then we have a guy at the office that edits it and makes it pretty or whatever, if it needs any spelling, all that kind of stuff. And then we do all the printing at the home office. We do all the mailing, the postage, and all of that. But then we have volunteers that come in. Every quarter, there's 3,000 plus letters that go out. That actually will happen this next week again. So we'll have a handful of volunteers, folks that in the whole area there from small churches or towns around that know what we do and they want to come and help. Another thing we have is what's called Senior Friends Breakfast. It doesn't show the people here. This is just an interview of Jonathan and Sarah Chadburn. This young couple we just brought on about a little over 6 months ago now to actually help with Nettie and I with our work, because it's getting to where we're growing across the United States to where we just can't get everywhere. Because one of the things we do is we make on-site visits with our RHMA families at least 1 time a year. And we did that not too long ago with Matthew and Sarah. It wasn't over a weekend, but we come and we take them out for a meal. We spend a day, we spent the night with them, spent the next day, whatever it means, and just trying to encourage them and trying to basically encourage them to keep on with ministry. But this young couple will now be helping us do some of that, because the longest trip that we've been out on the road, and this would have been going out west and covering all of that, we were just over 2 months on the road at one time. And that's getting a little harder to do all the time, because then we've got all the east country to do too, south. And it's important because we stay in homes wherever we're at. Again, we don't have a lot of money to work out of for hotels, that kind of thing. There's once in a while where we have to, we might be 800-mile jump or whatever, and so we have to find a hotel. But that gives you a little idea of what we're doing there. But this couple is coming on board. So down the line, you might actually get to meet Jonathan and Sarah, their children. They may be up this way. Another thing that we do, we have a church in the area, and this started a number of years ago, but they asked us, said, can we help with RHMA by doing church makeovers? And this was the first one that was done, and it's very difficult to see because the quality of the picture did not come in. I wish you could see my laptop up front, and you would see the difference. The picture up top on the left would show the church how rough looking it was from the outside. This is up in Crawford, Nebraska. The bottom on the right shows that it's completely redone from the outside, but not on the outside, it was done from the inside too. I think they laid carpet, they did a bunch of cabinet work. So we've got a church that has plumbers, carpenter guys, carpenters, rug layers, heating and air conditioning guys, and they're all in this one church, and they donate their time. They actually raise support themselves to take money to these little churches to help with the costs of that kind of thing. So that's a big thing that's happening with RHMA. And actually now in July, they're going to be at Cedar Creek Bible Church north of Burwell, Nebraska. And that little church is desperately in need. It's actually pretty rough shape. Anybody recognize this picture? This was the last time Nettie and I were here with you guys on a Sunday morning, if you remember, but it was cold that morning, I remember it. But I took that picture just to say we are thrilled to partner with you guys and Matthew and Sarah and Isaac. We really mean that. RHMA is here to support not only Matthew and Sarah, but to support you guys in any way we can. That's what RHMA is about, either strengthening churches or planting. And we do have some of those plants going on across the United States also. As I said, Nettie and I, as well as Matthew and Sarah, have to raise support. That's just part of the way it works. But in order for that support to continue coming in, I know for Nettie and I over these last 5 years, we've had to nurture that. And and find new supporters. Since we started with RHMA, we've had some of our supporters pass away. And so we have to find new ones in order to keep going. If Nettie and I would not have to be doing this, we would not understand what Matthew and Sarah have to do. We just would not understand that. So the resources that have to come in for Matthew and Sarah to continue doing what they're doing, for us to continue doing what we're doing, is very, very critical. We not only encourage Matthew and Sarah to go and raise their support and to try to keep that going, but we actually instruct them to. Because if they don't, they won't eventually be here. They can't. They can't stay here. They have to survive just like we do. We're a nonprofit. This is something maybe that you've maybe never thought about, but RHMA is a nonprofit, so the funds that come in for Matthew and Sarah, for Nettie and I, they go into their account. They don't go into one account and then everybody gets fed out of that account. We don't get anything out of Matthew and Sarah's account. Their money comes into their account. So I'm just going to try to give a figure here. Let's say, just say that $500 came in this last month for them. And they were actually supposed to get $1,500 because we calculate a salary from RHMA, or this is IRS guidelines that have to happen. And so they're only allowed so much through RHMA a month. If not, somebody could give $10,000 a month to RHMA and get a tax break, and that wouldn't be legal, if you follow what I'm saying. So there is a limit. They only get a salary that is set from RHMA. Now let's just say that salary was $1,500 a month, and their support was coming in and they were getting that. All of a sudden a month came in and there was only $500. Well, that's all they get, because we don't have a pot of money to work out again. And you folks wouldn't know that, or probably wouldn't have known that. But there might be months where Matthew and Sarah are just really, really scraping the bottom because their money didn't come in from their supporters. And again, Nettie and I would not have understood that unless we would work there and experience it ourselves. As I said, Nettie and I do on-site visits to all of our missionary families at least one time a year. We require monthly reports. I don't know, did anybody know that Matthew does that once a month to us? See, these are details that you wouldn't know necessarily, but we require monthly reports. Not that I want to know what's going on or try to check up on him. That is not, and I'm responsible for him, but that is not the reason. The reason is because auditors come in, and any day they can come in and pull his file, and we have to prove that he is actually doing something for the money that's coming into RHMA that people are getting a tax break for. So he records hours that he puts in. He records lots and lots of details, and he's very good at it. He's very detailed with that. So I really am. Oh yes.
And even the hours that he has to work.
Yes. Even the hours that he works other than church, he reports all of that to us too. So we keep monitoring that. I mean, there's a question on there that I have, how are you doing as a couple? Are you taking a day off? Those kind of things. That I do monitor, because if they don't, eventually that's not going to be good. They will go down. So they really, they're responsible to us, and that's why we're so passionate, as this verse says in 2 Corinthians, where Paul says, besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches. Because it's our responsibility for Matthew and Sarah to be healthy, to be a healthy shepherd for you guys. So there's a lot of little details that happen. We bring them back to the conference. I explained that. We do the newsletters. I explained that. The payroll, that comes through RHMA. That's why there's actually 11 of us at the home office, because there's tons and tons of work that has to be done other than what I would call ministry. Nettie is one that she gets the mail, she opens up. Can you imagine all of our missionaries from the U.S., all of their donations coming in from hundreds of people? Those checks have to be posted. They have to go in the right spots. It all has to be taken care of. There are many things, there's a lot of things here that I haven't been able to explain or touch on that RHMA does. And you know this, I'm sure, but Matthew and Sarah, by saying yes to ministry and doing the kinds of ministry they're doing, is sacrificing. And I don't mean that to feel sorry for them. That's not what I'm saying. They chose to do this. They feel called to do this. as Nettie and I feel called to do the work that we're doing. But they are sacrificing. But Scripture talks about that, leaving father and mother, leaving children. That's okay. That's what we're called to do to minister for Him. But you know, I know that they would echo Paul's words in Corinthians, as I just read, that they're concerned for you guys. And I know that they would echo also, without Christ's power, they could not do what they're doing. They would not be allowed to do that. I know. I have visits, maybe not weekly, but I have a lot of visits with Matthew on the phone. Emails. We stay in contact with them quite often, very regularly. We encourage them, if they're struggling with anything, to call us. And if we need to come up and just sit down with them, we will do that. That's why we're here, to help and encourage them to go on serving you guys and God. It's only because of Him that we do what we do and are able to do what we're doing. And if it wouldn't be because of Him, then there's no need to doing all this, is there? Ezekiel 34, verse 12, it says, "As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock, when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep." Matthew is your shepherd. And I know he and Sarah are very passionate about each one of you in this community. Believe me, I hear it. I do. And it's exciting to hear that. They are very passionate about bringing people to Christ, about relationships. But if they didn't have God as their shepherd, none of this would work. Nettie and I feel we're the shepherd to Matthew and Sarah, but if we didn't have God, we wouldn't be able to do this work. You know, it's 20 to 11. I actually had a bit of a message I was going to share too, but I'm not going to go there because it's already 20 to 11. We won't go that. Any questions? Anything you guys might have? I almost feel like I just talked about RHMA and didn't open God's Word. I guess we did a little bit, but any questions at all about RHMA, about Matthew and Sarah, about what we do? Maybe I should ask you this: how could we better do what we're doing for you as a church, for RHMA, from RHMA or Matthew and Sarah?
Maybe have some technical classes.
Technical classes, how to operate that thing. That's right. Well, you know what my answer to that is? It definitely
do
would.
what you're doing.
I would get a bigger hammer.
Well, I like you.
Yeah, no, it's part of what we need.
And we call it progress.
There you go.
I would just like to say thank you
Mm.
for what you're doing for them and for all the churches and those small churches around, and the pastors and their wives that are trying to reach people for the gospel. And just thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Those of us that have been around the block a few more times than average realize that it's not free.
Mm.
Freedom's not free. Somebody's got to pay the price for it. Even Christ, accepted donations and blessed those that freely gave. The woman that washed his feet with her hair. The lady that anointed him with all that expensive oil, I think, in someone's house. And she was being criticized for supporting that ministry. Christ stood up and rebuked him. We need more leaders, pastors, with a boldness to stand up and speak what should be spoken without. So far we can get away with saying a lot of things, but our culture has been radically altered here in the past 30 or 40 years, where if you stand up for what is right, you're a bigot, racist, etc. Half of the folks that call them names like that don't even know what they mean to begin with. And it's going to take a lot more. And probably going to get a lot worse before it gets even better.
Oh, yeah. You know, along with what you're saying, I might add, I know Matthew many a times feels like he's not doing enough, even within the community. And you know how I answer that? And I've struggled with that because I feel Nettie and I don't do enough. Did Jesus do it all when he was here on this earth?
You couldn't.
No, he didn't. He could have, but he didn't.
Yeah.
He was all powerful and he could have done
You
that.
got a choice.
But he showed us that we can only do what we can do. And I think that's important that we keep that in mind, all of us, yeah.
And I wanted to add to my thank you. When we were looking for a pastor, and we're like, well, we can't afford this, you know, this little church, the few people that we had, and we knew God was greater than all of the things that we were thinking. And you were part of the piece of the puzzle to make that happen, to keep this church alive, and keep it going and growing, and to help Pastor and Sarah. So, you know, it's just really neat.
Well, they did it for modern technology, the Skype worked in my laptop.
Okay. Well, good. Good.
Like I say, I know enough to turn it on, and how to turn it off. And after that,
And please come back every year for something like this. It's good for us, I think, to hear this or be informed,
Be reminded.
updated. and-
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, good. Well, we set up just a tiny little display. There's actually some markers there, highlighters. If anybody needs those, take them. Please take them. That'll even help remind you to pray for the home office, pray for Matthew and Sarah, but please help yourself to that stuff back there. We would love that. And if you have any other questions, you know, I didn't bring any of my cards with phone numbers or whatever, but our HMA home office, just type it in online. You got us right there. Give me a call if there's ever a need. If you ever feel that can help.
It's a good thing that sometimes you have to drive 800 miles, so you can have a little time by yourself.
Oh,
That is true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's something that we've struggled with. Yeah. Anything else?
I wondered about pastor working at the hardware store. Now, can they consider that contribution?
No.
They can't,
No.
because they receive a service back
Yeah.
from him.
Actually, he has to report that as income, and he has to pay tax on it, just like everybody else. Yeah. So that's you can't have that as contributions. Yeah.
now, his salary and everything through the church here
Mhm.
is still not taxable.
Right.
Not reportable.
Right.
Or I'm sure you have to make a report of it,
Yeah.
but it's not taxable. They're trying to do away with that too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and even in the 5 years that Nettie and I have been at RHMA, the IRS has come in and done a lot of things. Actually, one other piece of that was, and we had to explain here a couple of years ago to our pastoral couples, because we had to take the wife off of being an employee at RHMA. Actually, Matthew is the employee, Sarah is not, and that's because of Obamacare and all of that stuff that come in. It's too much to explain. So we had to take her off as being an employee, but we had to explain, listen, you are just as important as Matthew. You're there as a couple. But again, there's just a lot of things, and thankfully Lynette at our home office, she handles all that kind of stuff. And she used to be in the corporate world, and now she's working for us, and she is so good at keeping up, because we got to have somebody that keeps up with that stuff, because we don't want to have our nonprofit pulled from us. I mean, it would ruin what's going on. So there's a whole lot more to an organization like that than a guy can ever imagine. And again, we would not have never known that until we got there. I mean, we were in the business world with our farming and all of that we had no idea this side of the world. It's to be a complicated deal.
From the snippets that I've been catching with the news, through the internet, what have you, that Trump is trying to put the church back to where it belongs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's running into a lot of opposition from the other guys, and some from his own party too. I have mixed emotions about both sides, so if they're right, they're right, if they're wrong, there's no cure for it.
We have a very imperfect world.
Very.
Well, how about if I close in a word of prayer and then whatever else we have here? the opportunity that Nettie and I could be here and share the work of our HMA. And just thank you so much for Matthew and Sarah and Isaac and their willingness to serve you here at Center Baptist. And just thank you for these folks here in this congregation. Lord, they're serving you in this way, and we give you praise for that. Lord, it takes all of us to do the work that you've called us to do, and we give you praise for allowing us all to be involved in that. Thank you again. In Jesus' name, amen.
Our final deal is at page 175, O Lord, our Lord.
Dan, can we pray for the Wilsons as
Oh,
well?
I intend to.
Good.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for Gosen, Carrie Gosen, and his lovely wife, Betty. Thank you, Lord, for the dedication they have for your service. We pray, Lord, that you encourage them, lift them up, and continue to let them be a light and a blessing to those that they come in contact with, and that they guide and lead the pastors that they're responsible for in wisdom and be an encouragement to each and every one of them. And the needs that they have, Lord, we know that you can meet all and answer all. Protect them, Lord, with your love and your care. Wherever they travel to and whatever they do. These things we give you all the praise and the honor for. In the precious and holy name. 175. Just the first verse. Oh,